Hey everybody, and welcome to Paper Crafting with Tammi. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. It is awesome to see you here. I have a great project for us today that we're going to start on in just a minute. If you haven't done it yet, take a minute and hit that big red subscribe button so you see what else I've got for you next time, and let's get started. Hey there, paper crafting friends, and thanks for popping in today. I've got laid out the photos that I want to work with today. So as you can see, I've got some really beautiful fall pictures. Now these were taken at a covered bridge near Cottage Grove, Oregon. I was on a little weekend getaway and dealing with a bunch of things at work, and I pulled over here to just clear my head and take some pictures before I got where I was going, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. So when I look at this palette, I'm really struck by the combination of the yellows and the greens, and then a little bit of the reflection off the water. So I wanted to make sure that I chose an appropriate paper to really highlight these photos, and I'll show you the paper pad that ended up catching my eye. So when I went through my stash, I came across this paper pad from SEI. Now, I don't even know if this is still available, you guys. It's called Moonrise. I've had it for a while. Sometimes I can be a paper collector, especially with things that are really particularly beautiful. I have to make myself use them. This is a single-sided stack, and there's 2 of each page. So you can see there's a little bit of foil accent on these. It's so funny because I've been featuring foil accented papers in a lot of my videos lately. And typically that would not be something I would gravitate to. So not sure what's going on with me with this new obsession with kind of shiny things. It's my nails too, see? I don't know. I'm finding my inner girl. So I'm just gonna take you through this real quick. And then I'm gonna sit and make some paper choices, and I'll pop back on and show you exactly which ones I'm gonna focus on. And then we'll get a layout laid out. So I don't always show you the pictures that I'm gonna use. A lot of times I'll make my layouts and then I'll figure out the pictures later. But because these really inspired my video today, I wanted to make sure that I showed them to you and that we get them put on the page. So I think we're almost at the end of this. I cannot believe, I don't think I've used anything out of this paper stack, which is criminal. All right, so that's what I've got to work with. Like I said, I'm gonna make some choices and start just layering up some paper, and I'll pop back on and show you which ones I'm gonna use. All right, so here's a closer look at the papers that I ended up choosing. So I'm gonna go with this large print that's got a ton of beautiful colors in it that all match the photos really well. And there's this great dark brown pattern, this orange, kind of a light stripe on there, and then the green just kind of textured paper. So these are what I'm gonna play with. If you put those photos just on top, you can see they're really gonna coordinate well together. I'm not sure which one I'm gonna use for the background paper yet. I'm sure that you go through a similar process when you're trying to decide. They all look really beautiful on this orange, so I may use that as my background, and it may actually save me from having to matte some of these because they really pop on here anyway, so that may be a good strategy to go with. So I'm going to grab some templates and start laying a design out, and we'll get going. Okay, so I think that one of my favorite things about scrapbooking is that my plan changes as I go. So I really had thought that this orange was going to be the right choice for my background. And then when I had everything laid out and I grabbed the paper that I want to use for this large bracket, it looked good on there, but it didn't necessarily have the contrast that I wanted. So then I grabbed the dark brown paper that was part of the stack, trimmed off the zip strips, and I thought, oh, this will be perfect. This is going to make a really nice background. Well, guess what? when I trimmed it, the paper is less than 12 by 12. It's like 12 by 11 3/4. That's not going to work for me for a background, or it's going to show weird when I put it in the album. So I had some Echo Park, just a dark brown from Echo Park that I ended up pulling out. If you look at this up against that dark brown, I think that's going to be really pretty as this accent piece for the bracket. So I chose the photos that I want to use. I was really fortunate to have so many to choose from, and then a couple that were really similar. So I picked my 6 favorites. I'm still trying to decide exactly how I'm going to do these. I may do this water one in the middle and kind of separate the bridges out. And then you've got to use your imagination here, because this large bracket is also going to carry over to this side. So this is a really simple design, but I did that because these pictures really command this page. This is also going to be a very big, kind of busy pop, and I'm not sure how much more I want to do other than some accents with this green, the orange, and then potentially more of this like beautiful deep brown. So I kept it simple on purpose. I did pull out a few leaves that I was considering putting like in a cluster, but we're going to have to see how those look on that big print. It may be that that big print really already commands enough attention that we don't need something else. So it's nice to have something in your back pocket and an idea, but sometimes I don't know until I get it all together what I'm actually going to use. The other option would be, as I'm looking at this, like to maybe scoot this down a little bit, still use the bracket, but I might be able to use the leaves up here where it won't be as busy, and just create a little cluster, and then decide if I have a spot that I can do that on this side. So obviously I still have a lot of work to do, but thank you for joining me for this journey. I know you have these same conversations with yourself when you're creating pages, so I don't know if it's helpful for you to hear my thinking process or not, but I know some people really want to hear how and why I make certain decisions. So I'm going to get these brackets cut and the strips cut. We'll take another look at it and then decide where we're going to go from there. So I want to show you how I used this piece of paper with the large bracket and cut those pieces that I needed. So here's that large bracket template. So you've got to kind of picture this as a 12 by 12 piece of paper. I went ahead and cut one large bracket out of this side and one large bracket out of this side. So that leaves me this kind of odd shape, right? And it is a little bit strange, but it could be used on a future page just as a whole piece, or I would probably end up cutting this right down the middle and using this, you know, on a future layout kind of that way as an accent. So just kind of one of those tips that helps you use up your paper in an efficient way. All right, let me show you how these turned out. So here's that beautiful large bracket piece. So we're going to do one of those here and one here. And as I looked at that, I felt like, yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, it's very busy and it's very bold. So I wanted to tone that down just a bit. So I ended up pulling in this dark brown here. And then to frame those photos a little bit more, I'm going to use a green strip like that. Okay, so that's what I have in mind for that area. And then on this side and at the top, I pulled in that beautiful orange, which I'm really happy with. I just think that orange paper is perfect for this. And then I'm going to use another one of those green strips. This is just a 1/2 inch strip. The orange and the brown are both 1 inch strips. but I'll probably show a little bit more of that orange. And then the same thing here. Okay. And so as I was looking at this, I'm still trying to decide, honestly, if I'm going to pull the leaves in. I think what I'll end up doing is getting this all inked and adhered down, and then I'm going to think about if I want to pull the leaves in. Sometimes less is more, so I'm still figuring that out, but I will cut a couple and try it. Then I decided I wanted to, you've got this beautiful gold accent on this paper, and I wanted to carry something across to this area. So I tried several things. I pulled out some kind of washi tape that I had, and I wasn't real happy with that. I pulled out this gold glitter shimmer trim. This is beautiful, but maybe a little more than I want as far as the glittery look. I pulled out this one, which is more of a brown, I'm not sure what they call it, bronze. And that was a little less bold, but I ended up not really liking that either. So the one that I ended up deciding on is actually this gold sequin ribbon. And I just like that, how it carries the gold to another area of the page. It is a really beautiful pop, but without being super overpowering, and it carries that gold. So that's what I'm going to end up using. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything inked and adhered, and I'll get this shimmer, this sequin trim on, and then we'll take a look at some leaves and decide if we're going to go ahead and put those in or not. I don't know how many of you have used this kind of a product before, but this gold sequin ribbon, it can be a little bit tricky to get it to adhere. So what I like to do is just kind of measure out what I'm going to need and go ahead and trim that. And then I take my pieces, so I've already got a couple here, and I run them through my Xyron sticker maker. So this has two distinct sides. One has more of the thread that's holding it together showing, and then the other side is really vibrant with the actual sequins. So if you put it in your Xyron and you put the thread side down, you can actually get both strips in there at the same time, just kind of side by side. And I just try to feed them in and start to pull the Xyron a little until I know they're both moving. Keep an eye on them as you're pulling, because you want to make sure they don't overlap. You just pull them all the way through, and then give this a good rub down, and that's going to put adhesive on the back, and it just seems to work better than adhesive from, say, like an ATG gun. That's going to be too wide. My tape runner's too wide. The glue doesn't seem to hold as well. So that's just kind of what I have figured out is a good way. So you can then peel the top off and toss that stickiness. But then as you pull these one at a time, they're going to come off sticky. And you can just get them adhered down where you want them. And what I wanted was just a little line of these sequins right here at the top of my page, just separating that orange and green strand of paper. So there's one for that side. And then one for this side. In that same area, just separating the orange and the green. And it's sticky, but it's not so sticky that you can't work with it, which I like. Because apparently I'm having trouble getting it on there straight today. Alrighty, and I'll trim those up at the ends later, but There we go. Let me move that camera back up and we can talk about the leaves. So these are the shapes that I was considering for some little leaf clusters. And because I went ahead and made that beautiful sequin strip there, I think I'm gonna leave that area alone. And what I'm thinking is I'm gonna try these out as a cluster, maybe here. And I just want this like kind of fern one in here as some green, because there is still a lot of green in these photos. So I'm thinking something like that here, and then maybe one more cluster up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get those traced and cut, and we'll see how they show up, and if it looks like something that's going to work, then I think I would just pop those up, or at least part of them, to give it a little bit of dimension, and then call this layout done. Alrighty, so I got my leaves all cut out and ready to work with. I did want to show you, when I'm inking things like this that have a lot of detail, I can get around these bigger pieces just fine with a regular dauber, but when it gets to these really tight spaces, and if I don't want a lot of extra brown, I tend to use one of these eyeshadow applicators. So you can pick these up really cheap, like at the Dollar Tree. So just a little tip, a little bit easier to get into those small spaces. All right, I want to add a little bit of detail to these leaves before I put them together. I'm going to be using a shimmer brush from Close to My Heart. This is a gold one. And I just want to add like some veining, especially to these larger leaves. So I am just going to do a little bit of detail work here. Not a lot, just enough to add a little bit of shimmer. I'm just trying to go off that center and add some detail lines. I'm not even sure if you can see that. It'll show up a little bit better when it dries, but there's just a little bit of gold shimmer on there. I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'll pop these up in the camera when they're done, but just that little touch always seems to add a little bit to that finished product. So I will be creating two basically identical clusters, one for each side of the page. So I know that I want to do a little bit of layering. I'm not going to pop up until I'm ready to put it on the page, just so you know. I want to do something kind of like this. And then that brown coming in and overlapping. Kind of both of them, something like that. And then I have a little gold ribbon that I've tied that I just want to put on that little stem cluster. I'm just going to do that with a little dab of glue. So I'm going to set this one aside to dry. And I'll grab the other set. And do the same thing. So anytime you're going to add a special detail like a shimmer or a trim, some kind of glitter, you want that to be the same for any cluster or anything like that you're going to do. I think otherwise it would look really unbalanced. So I started off this layout with the definite understanding that the pictures are going to be the star, and I still am maintaining that. None of these things that I'm adding are so overt that I think that they're going to take away from the beauty of those pictures. Something like a really bright gold stickles I think would have been too much, and that's why I didn't go that route. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one together, very similar to what I just did. And then I'll show you how these are going to go on the page. Let's see, I think this one's actually going to go slightly different direction. So we'll do that bow this way. All right, so that first cluster is for this left-hand page. And I just want to apply some foam tape to this to allow it to be popped up. I'm going to do that trimming of the foam tape and getting it set on there. I'll do that part off camera, but I'll just kind of show you how much I add. So both of these clusters have a fair amount of foam tape on them. Hopefully you can see that. I want to make sure that if I'm popping them up that I'm not putting them in a position where they're just going to get smushed completely down in the album. I added that dimension on purpose. So here's the first cluster, and this is kind of what I had in mind. I wanted it to, that orange leaf to come up into the photos just a bit, and then I wanted the brown and the green to be coming down and away from that strip that was already those colors. My little ribbon, my little bows here already fell off. I think that I handled them just too much, but I am going to use a different adhesive. This is the Beacon 3-in-1, and this is a little, I don't know, it just holds better, it dries faster. There we go. So probably that mono adhesive I'd used would have been fine if I had just put it down and left it, but I promptly started flipping it around and adding the foam tape, and that just did not go well. So I'm going to leave this one off to the side and let that dry. And then we've got this right hand side. I've already pulled the backing off of the foam tape. So this cluster is similar. I wanted it to do kind of the same thing. Come across the photo here, and then push that green and brown accents. And then this was where I had in mind for that little gold bow. Alrighty, so I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. I will put some close-up pictures in the at the end of the video, so take a minute and check those out. And if you are interested in these two leaves, these are part of the fall design kit. This is actually in a snap frame area of the website, so you may not see them right away. So check out that snap frame area. I'll put a link in the description. These are both really beautiful leaves. They come in a set with a little wooden pumpkin, and I believe the word autumn, also wooden. So I went ahead and picked these up simply because I really liked the leaves, and those are available if you're interested. So thanks for tuning in today. I appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon, I hope. Bye-bye.